so for you guys that are on Zoom, if you'll make sure to put in your, in the chat box, put in your first and last name, so I have a record of you being in the class would be awesome. And we're gonna get started. So, all right. So here's where I'm gonna start with, and I don't think anyone that was on Zoom was in Morning Ascend on Monday. So I've got Aubrey and Urbano, right? Urbano? Yes. In the room with me, and they heard me say part of this stuff on Monday, but not all of it. So I will give you extra stuff. But so here's where I want to start with, though, is let me kind of give you excuse me. Let me give you guys a background on really why I'm here doing what I'm doing. And what I mean by that is I got involved with just training agents back in 2004, might have been the end of 2003 even, but somewhere around 2003, 2004. And as part of that process, part of why I did was because I enjoy helping people get the business up and running. And so, or I should say, or going to the next level, either way you want to look at it. But so one of the things though that I've learned is there is a very, very high failure rate for real estate. And in fact, 13 out of 14 people who start real estate will end up failing out of real estate. And the reason for that is because, and we talked briefly, I think, on this on Monday, but in real estate school, they don't teach you how to go do real estate. They teach you how to go pass a test. And so for me, what I love about, especially what we're going to be talking about today, I've got a few favorite classes. This is one of my favorite classes that I enjoy teaching. And the reason is because it will make a huge impact in your business if you'll do what we talk about today. Okay. So 13 out of 14 people will fail. Well, I don't know about you guys, but when I got my real estate license, like I had been, my wife and I had had a lady out showing us houses. And while she was showing us houses, I like did the math of how much commission she was going to make. And at the time on that one, the commission that she was going to make was going to be like $1,500, which like, but at the time, like to me, like I was like, holy cow, if I could make $1,500 by helping somebody buy a house, like I'm in. So I went to real estate school, got my license, and I just kind of thought like, I don't know. I didn't know how you found clients. Like, what did you guys think? Like when you went to school, and you guys on Zoom can answer as well, but like, where did you think clients were going to come? How did you think you were going to make money in real estate?
I just thought your name would be popping up on Google and people would just call you up, I guess.
Okay, good.
Well, I kind of had an idea of it, so I knew I had to go out there and put myself out there and do the works. But I knew that from the start it wasn't going to be. It's not easy, you know. And this isn't going to be easy.
Okay, good. What about you guys on Zoom? Anybody? No, check into the chat. Let me see the chat box here. Or you can unmute, either way. I got nothing. All right. Hey, so yeah, so typically what I've found is a lot of times people are not sure or whatever, like they like Aubrey said, maybe that they just thought it would just their name would just pop up somewhere and people would want to use them to buy or sell real estate. And that's not the way it works. So here's where I want to start with is basically I want to go through and talk with you about what your job really is. So I'm just going to write up here what your job is, okay? So your job, really there's 4 things, and there's really probably more than 4, but these are kind of the main things if you want to make money in the business that you got to make sure you're doing. And so the first one is to prospect. Okay, is we got to get on the phone or go knock on doors. So we got to go talk to people. It's kind of the first thing that we got to do is we have to go out and talk to people. And I don't think I really realized, like I thought the job was that you put people in your car and you went and drove around and showed them houses. Like that's what I thought the job was, or that you went to their house and then you put your sign in their front yard and that was it. What I found out quickly is most of the time in this job is spent doing these other things. Like once you get somebody that will get in your car and go look at houses, which we don't really put people in the car very often. In fact, I was in a training with the Division of Real Estate the last 2 days. And somebody brought up something about putting people in your car. And everybody started to laugh and somebody said, when's the last time you actually put somebody in your car? And so like, it's not as common as it used to be, but once you get that, or you get somebody who says, yes, I want to sell our house, like that's the easy part of the job, which what I found is a lot of the reason a lot of people have come into real estate is they came into real estate because they, like me, looked at it and was like, well, that's like easy money. Like you make a ton of money and all you got to do is drive people around and open a door is what my thought was. You know, you open the door, you let them walk around and that was all there is to it. Well, then I found out quickly that that's the easy part of the job. The hard part is this. So it's one, we got to prospect. Two is we've got to do lead follow-up. Okay. So because, and here's why, is not everybody that you talk to is going to, and we'll actually say more about this. This class we're doing today is a 2-part class. So the first half's today, second half will be next Tuesday that we'll do. And so I'll say more about some of this stuff on Tuesday next week. But lead follow-up. Not everybody is going to say yes the first time you call them on the phone. In fact, probably I would say more times than not, you're going to get a later kind of a thing. So you got to be good at lead follow-up, and most agents are not good at doing lead follow-up. Okay. So number 3 then is once we've done that, and the purpose of our lead follow-up is to set appointments. Okay. So I just always shorthand that to APPTS, appointments. Ours is to set appointments. And then number 4 is present. Then we've got to go out and make a presentation to the people after we have set the appointment. So if you really, if this is where I wish, honestly, like I wish in real estate school, that day 1 of real estate school, maybe even before you can sign up for real estate school, they had a class that they were like, let me tell you what real estate really is going to look like. And it's going to look like you doing this stuff most of the time. What you think you're coming into real estate to do is probably not what it's going to look like at first. Now you'll get there, but this is what it kind of looks like. All right. So with that in mind, and now I'm going to give a little bit of a re-story for you two. Everybody else hasn't heard me talk about it yet, but so I decided, I was riding around in this car with this real estate agent. She was showing my wife and I houses. I asked her, hey, what do I have to do? And then I'm going to give more detail than I gave you guys on Monday, but I was working at a bank and I was out in the operations department. And I had actually started out working for this bank. I started out as I was making photocopies of checks. Like my job was if somebody needed a copy of their check, like they had written a check. Urbano, do you know what a check is?
Yes.
I'm just kidding. Like most of the younger generation, I always have to give it, do you even know what a check is? But so people would need a copy of a check to prove that they had made a payment or whatever. So they go into a branch. And they would say to the teller at the branch, hey, I need to get a copy of this check. The branch would then call us up on the phone and say, we need a copy of this person's check number, whatever, out of their account. Then what we would do is we had this like microfiche, but it was really microfilm that we would go to, and it would tell us where that check copy was. And so we'd sit down at these machines and have this little dial that you would kind of just go, and like it would just, like the film would be running and you'd get to, it was numbered order and you just kind of go till you got to the right number, you'd stop and then you'd hit print and it would print out a copy of this check. So it would print out this check and then from there we would send it to the bank. Like I just trained you how to do my job that I was doing at the bank. Now that's not what I was doing when I left. So I became the manager of that department after a few years of being there. Well, at the time then, now I'm out looking at properties and I'm thinking like, this seems like, remember, like the house we looked at was $50,000 at the time. And so the agent would have made 3% of that. So she made $1,500. And I was like, oh, that's a ton of money. Like I'd be happy with that. So I go to real estate school thinking I might do it. Well, in the process of me going to real estate school, my boss came to me one day and he said, hey, I got a project for you that I want you to do. And I said, okay, what is it? And he told me what the project was. And I was like, well, why are you having me do that? That was a lady by the name of Nancy. I said, that's Nancy's department. She oversees that department. Why are you having me do it? And he said, well, because I know you'll get it done. And I'm not sure she will. And I was like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, to me, I was kind of like, and here's part of why I say that. At the bank, the way it worked was the way that we got paid was you got paid according to how long you had been in your job. So like every job had kind of different classifications or whatever. And however long you had been there is how much you were going to then get paid for doing that job. Well, she had been in the job a lot longer than me. So she made a lot more money than me. And now I'm doing her work. And so I was like, I'm not sure I want to do this. So I finished real estate school. I go get my license. I go into the office. I sit down and I go to the manager. And I said to the manager, what do I need to do? He said, first thing you need to do, which this part I would recommend to do if you haven't done. Said, go make a list of every single person that you know. Now, Allie, I know you were recently married. So what I'm about to say, you could use this. So I had been married for not too long at that point. So I thought, well, I'm going to go get the list of all the people that I invited to come and attend my wedding. And I started with that list of people. So if you haven't done that with this list, Allie, sorry, I know I should be looking this way at you, but I can see if I look this way. But create your list from that of all the people you invited to your wedding. You should be telling them you're in real estate too. Okay. So anyway, so I did that. I mailed it out. I go to my boss and I go, okay, now what? And he said, and I'm shortening the story a little bit because you guys already heard part of it. But basically what he said is go knock on doors for 2 years, 2 hours every day for 2 years. You won't ever have to do it again. So that's what I started to do. And I would go out and knock on doors. Well, I got frustrated because what happened was this. When I came into real estate, I had a goal of I wanted to make $100,000 a year. Now, when I left the bank, I was making about $35,000 a year. It's probably about what I was making. Well, I wanted to make 100,000. Now I went into the manager at the office and I said, okay, how do I do this? How do I make $100,000? Well, at the time, the average commission was $2,000. So home prices had gone up since I had been looking at the house because the one we had looked at was going to be $1,500. But $2,000, he said, is the average commission check that agents were getting. Okay, well, if I want to make $100,000, how many closings do I got to do? 50, yeah. So what he said to me and what you're going to hear, if you haven't heard this yet, but one of the things you're going to hear, and I think it's a good place to start, by the way. Like, I think it is a good place to start, but I actually would also tell you that there's like no truth to it. And I shouldn't say no truth, but it's not true. Because you're going to hear people say, you're going to hear it said from within the management, the leadership, top leadership, even within our own company. As many contacts as you make per day is the number of transactions you will do in a year. Have you heard that ever? Aubrey?
Kind of, George has touched on it a little.
Okay, yeah, you're going to hear people say that. Now, here's the thing. That's what my manager told me, was he said, if however many contacts on a daily basis that you make is how many closings you'll do in a year. Okay. So I went out and just said, okay, I'm going to do 50 contacts every day. So I would go out and knock on doors and I would meet at the office with a lady by the name of Shirley. Shirley and I would do role play at about 9:15 every day until about 9:45. We would then jump in a car and go drive out to the neighborhood we were going to door knock. We would knock on doors till we each got 25 contacts. So she'd take one side of the street, I would take the other side, and then we would just go door to door, you know, kind of keeping an eye on each other. If I ever got way ahead of her, I would just kind of stand and wait for her to get caught up. I mean, just enough that we could see each other. It's not like we made sure we were constantly right across the street, but enough that I could see her, she could see where I was, we weren't going to get lost, whatever. So we go out and we would do that until each of us had gotten 25 contacts. Well, back then that would typically take 2 to 2.5 hours to get to 25 contacts. Well, then we would go back to the office, we'd go our separate ways for lunch, we would meet back up at 2 o'clock, and then we would get on the phone and we would call until we got our other 25 contacts, which would usually take another 2 to 2.5 hours. So remember back here, I said, your job really is these 4 things. Really, most of the time, your job is going to be spent doing those 2 things. Is really where most of the, like, stop and think about it for a minute, because from what I just told you is I was spending between 4 and 5 hours every single day, basically prospecting. So if this is why I say I wish in real estate school, they would say, let me tell you what you're really signing up to do if you want to make, because most people come into the business wanting to make at least $100,000 a year. And so because of that, like, I wish they would say, if you want to do that, this is what it's going to take. But they don't. And so it's fine. That's just what it is. So I started doing that, and I would do the 50 contacts every single day. So I was going out doing 50 contacts every single day. And after about a year, I had actually not done 50 closings. I had done about 17, which, if you do the math, 17 times 2,000 is approximately. You guys are like, this is part of real estate school. I hated this math, right? $34,000.
Yeah.
Now, remember, I left the bank making about 35. So I was like basically just kind of surviving. Well, about that time, I had actually a closing. I had a house that I had come across. So kind of the background is on this piece of it was I had a neighbor that was a builder, and he told me he was building a couple of houses in West Jordan. And he said, when they're done and ready to sell, I'm going to let you list them. So I listed both of those houses. Well, I got a phone call from, and actually, let me even give you the street name that it was on. The reason I remember the street name is because of the client, but the street that these houses were being built on was called Winter Circle. I mean, it's still there in West Jordan, Winter Circle.
I knocked that.
Did you?
Yeah.
So in the bottom of the circle, the house that's like on this side of that circle is the one I'm talking about right now,
Okay.
if you've knocked on that door.
Yeah.
So Winter Circle, and my neighbor built that house. Well, so I get a phone call from the sign, and the lady says, my husband and I want to buy this house. And I was like, okay, well, do you want to look at it first? And she was like, well, yeah, we want to look at it, but we already know we want to buy it. And I was like, and this is why I remember the street name, is because I said, okay, but you should at least look at it probably before you decide you want to buy it. And she says, well, no, my husband works at Granite Furniture, and which was like an RC Willey. And she said, every month they have a Winter Circle, and he always is the top of the Winter Circle. So he wants to live on Winter Circle. So the house doesn't really matter. We want to live on Winter Circle. I was like, okay, whatever. So I meet him out there. I show him the house. They write an offer. I go and list their house that was out in Magna, which I got a whole nother story I'll tell you someday about that one. But I list their house for sale. We sell their house, and then I'm almost out of money. Like, because again, I'm barely making what I was making at the bank. And my wife says to me, if that deal doesn't close, you got to go get a job, like a real job. And thankfully it closed, or I wouldn't be standing here, obviously. But here's the interesting thing, and this has nothing to do with the class, but just on that, for me, like, I feel like there was some type of divine intervention that took place on that transaction, because it should not have closed. I have only had one transaction ever that the title company had to pay for the title insurance, a claim on title insurance, and it was that house. So what happened was, and since you know where it's at, Aubrey, what happened is directly behind that house, it is Redwood Road. So, well, there's a house behind that house, and then Redwood Road. The guy that owned that house, which it's now some type of a business or something, I can't remember. It's like I don't know. Anyway, there's some type of a business there. But the guy that lived in that house had owned all of the land, and he had sold it. Well, what happened is the title company called up the builder and said, hey, there's a lien for like $15,000 on this lot. And the builder said, oh, I already paid that. No, it was $25,000. It's $25,000. He said, I already paid that. And she didn't check. So she just went ahead and recorded. The moment it recorded and the people moved into the house, the guy that lived there sees people moving in, comes over, and then posts a notice of default on the front door, basically saying, I'm foreclosing on your house because he didn't get paid. So the title company ended up paying the title insurance. But here, the interesting thing why I say there was divine intervention, if the builder would have had to pay that $25,000, he made no money on the house, zero. So he wouldn't have been able to sell the house, and I wouldn't be standing here talking to you. So I'm grateful that happened. But not long after that, here's what happened: is not long after that, I went to this training and I met a guy that was doing this training. And he became, I wouldn't say he's a mentor for me anymore, but he was a mentor for me. Like he helped me a ton. Well, in this training, he drew this on the board for me. And what happened was in the training, I was talking to him about how frustrated I was because I came into this business to make money and I wanted to make at least $100,000 a year. And I said to him, I'm frustrated because I came into this business to make that money and I'm not doing it. And he said, well, tell me what you're doing. And I explained to him that I was doing 50 contacts a day. And he said, how much money did you make doing 50 contacts a day? And I told him somewhere around 35,000. And he said, okay, I know what the problem is. And then he drew this on the board. And he explained this to me. So this blue line here is the learning curve, okay? And what he explained to me is the first phase that people go through when they first get their real estate license is what's called the activities phase. In the activities phase is where, because in real estate school, they didn't teach you how to go sell real estate. Because of that, what happens is agents get stuck in this activities phase of, I don't know what to do. Like and part of it is, I think, Stephen, back what you said, Aubrey, is to some extent they feel like, okay, I got my real estate license and I'm ready for the office to start giving me people or whatever. Like, I don't always know for sure where they think they're going to come from, but because your job really is this, and nobody's told you that before you went through real estate school or even during real estate school, they haven't told you this is what your job's really going to look like. What happens is we get stuck then in this activities phase because, and I don't know about you guys, but for me, my biggest fear when I got my real estate license was that somebody was going to ask me to help them write an offer or to tell me, come list my house for sale. And I was like, I wouldn't know how to do that. Yet I've been through real estate school and I'm licensed. And so now, remember I started this whole thing by telling you 13 out of 14 people fail out of real estate. The reason they fail out of real estate is because they get stuck in this phase. So for you guys, one of the things I want to make sure you understand and be really, really clear on is if you're in this phase, activities phase, you got to get out as fast as you can. Because the reason people fail out of this business is they never get out of this phase. And what it looks like is this. Well, I don't really know how to do it, so I can't get on the phone and make any phone calls yet. Because what if somebody asked me to write an offer for them and I don't know how to do it? So I should probably wait and go take the class on how to write an offer. Or we think, well, I should probably get on the MLS and figure out how to use the MLS so that I know how to do a search to find houses for people. Like that's what happens. The activities phase is, how do I get my business cards? How do I fill out a contract? How do I use the MLS? How do I get a key to the office? How does my voicemail work? How does my email work? What does 21 Online look like? All of those things are this activities phase, and just recognize that it is normal for your brain to feel like I have to stay here. Like I can't go make phone calls yet because number one, I don't know what to say. Number two, what if somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer to? All of those things are normal. But you got to be willing to say, even though it's normal and I'm scared and I don't know what to say, I got to get out of this phase. Now, here's why. Assume this blue line here is how much money you're going to make from selling real estate. How much money do you make in the activities phase? Yeah, pretty much zero. Like you might luck into what?
You should spend money.
Yeah, negative. You're right. I probably should start. The line should probably start down below here, huh? It's costing you money, then it goes like that, right? But yeah, so just recognize it is 100% normal to feel like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Like that is the reason 13 out of 14 people fail. Just like know that the reason people fail out of this business is because they get stuck in this activities phase. Well, luckily for me, when my manager said, go out and talk to 50 people a day, and I told the story on Monday to these two, but for the rest of you guys, the very first time I went out door knocking, we got out to the neighborhood And I remember I said to the agent, okay, what do I say if somebody says yes? And first thing he says to me is, well, don't worry, they won't. And I was like, well, wait a minute, like, I hope they're gonna say yes, but what do I do if they do? And he said, just tell them you're busy and you'll have to call them back. So the last house I get to on the street, I knock on the door, the guy says, yes, I want to move. And I go, all right, well, I'm busy, I'll have to come back later. So I did. And luckily though, I got the listing. Now, the other piece I didn't tell you guys on Monday about it. So here's the funny thing, this funny story about that. So I get this appointment to go meet with this guy. He wants to sell his house and move to Wendell, which I'm like, I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but whatever. No offense if anybody's from Wendell. But anyway, so I go out to list the house, and what first thing I did, so and part of why I tell you this piece of the story is I want you to understand that you don't have to know what you're doing to go out and get stuff done, is part of why I'm telling you this story. Because I didn't know what I was doing on the listing. So I go to my manager and I'm like, okay, I got this listing appointment. What do I do? He hands me the paperwork, because back then we didn't have dot loop or anything like that to do electronically. So he hands me the paperwork, says, go fill this out and have them just sign it. And I go, okay. And he's like, but go read through it so you at least have an idea what it is. So I go sit down at my desk and I kind of read through it, which, so again, this, we'll talk actually more next Thursday. We're going to do the class I'm going to talk about is how to track your time and stuff, how to know if you're being effective with it. And part of what new agents do, actually, and I shouldn't even say new agents, part of what agents do that gets, again, stuck in this activities phase is we come up with activities to do that really aren't going to make us any money. But we feel like we're busy. And we feel like, well, I'm learning and I'm getting ready to get ready so that when I'm ready, I'll actually be ready to be ready. And you got to get out of that. Okay. So I go out to meet with this family. I get there and I'm sitting there and I'm going through it and I'm explaining, here's what this section of the contract, and I'm just giving a way high overview of what the contract says, because I don't even actually really know what it says because I was brand new. So I'm telling them, here's basically what this section says. This section says that the commission that you're going to pay, and this section talks about, and this section, and the guy says to me, well, okay, but so how much is the commission going to be? And at that point, I was like, oh, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to that. So I look at section 2 where it had the commissions, and I look down, and pre-printed there says 7%. So I say, commission 7%. And the guy goes, okay. So he signs everything. I go back to the office. I walk into the manager's office, and he goes, and I should have known something was up when he did this. But the manager goes, did they sign it? And I say, yeah. And he goes, just like it was. Yeah. He's like, good job. And I'm like, thanks. So then the next sales meeting we had, and it was within a day or two of that, we go into sales meeting. So imagine we're in this room, you got a bunch of agents in here, and he goes, all right, guys, I just got to tell you, Russ got his first listing. And everybody's like, yeah, congratulations. And he goes, hold on. He listed it for 7%. And everybody's like, whoa. And I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute, like the contract said 7. I didn't think I had a choice. And everybody's like, oh, we always just cross it out and write 6, which is why the manager's like, they signed it like it is. So my point in that is, don't always just assume that, like, sometimes I don't know what I'm doing is a good thing. Like, you might actually make more money because you don't know what you're doing. Because otherwise, if you listen to other agents, they'll tell you, oh no, I was just cross it out and put 5 or 6 or whatever. I just didn't know any better, said it was 7. Let me give you one other quick story on that. This was probably a year and a half ago, maybe. Got an opportunity to go list a property in North Salt Lake. Got out there and sitting down with the seller, and the seller says, so how much is the commission going to be? And I say 7%. And she goes, oh, so it hasn't changed. See, don't always assume everybody is expecting to have a cheaper commission. Now, they might, which, by the way, I'm going to show you guys on Tuesday some charts from the National Association of Realtors that they put out every year. And I'm not going to show you this one, but one of the charts they put out every year actually asks the clients, did you get a reduced commission And if they say yes, then the follow-up question is, who brought up reducing the commission? Guess who most of the time brings up reducing the commission? Yeah, not the client. It's the agent that brings it up. And that's according to the NAR study shows they got to reduce commission. The agent's the one who brought it up, wasn't them. So just know you got to get out of this activities phase as fast as you can and get into the next phase. So the next phase is what we would call the contacts phase. Okay. Now, in the contacts phase is when we are actually now out making contacts. So what happened was, and I don't fault my manager for this, and I don't fault anybody ever, if you hear somebody saying you're going to, the number of transactions you'll do is the number of contacts you do on a daily basis. I don't fault anybody for saying that, because the reason I like that and why I say it, and I said to you guys, it's a good place to start, even though I personally don't believe it's true. There may be others that would tell you, no, it's true, but I personally don't believe it's true. And the reason for that is I'll give you three reasons. Number one, I was doing this for over a year. I did it for a year and a half before I learned this. And I was nowhere near doing 50 transactions, doing 50 contacts a day. So from my own personal experience, I'm like, I didn't see it. Second way I would say that. There was a guy in my office who would sometimes go door knocking with Shirley and I, but even if he didn't, he would usually do his own that was doing 50 contacts a day. He never once sold a house. Never sold a house. And for at least a year did 50 contacts every day. So to me, I was like, okay, this is a good place to start. But now, so let me give you the third proof. Brian Burnett, who is our top agent here in Utah in St. George. Anybody know how much money he made last year?
$3 million.
How much?
3 million.
$3 million. Guess how many contacts a day he makes? 50. So like to me, I'm like, there's no magic in this. Like I did 50 and was doing like 17 contacts or closing. He does 50 and does 150 closings. So like, it's a good place to start. So like what I'm saying is when you hear people say that, because you're going to hear probably George even say it, just know that the reason we say that is what we're trying to do when we bring that up is to get you out of the activities phase and into the contacts phase. Because at least what's going to happen is that people will look at this and go, okay, well, I want 50 closings in a year. And if I've got to do 50 contacts, then I better go out and start making, like the whole reason people say that, which by the way, one of my mantras in life is power comes out of telling the truth. So you can just count on like, I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's why I say, even though you're going to hear this, it's not true, but I'm good with it because it gets people out of the activities phase and into the contacts phase. And anything we can do to get you into the contacts phase is a good thing. Okay. So I'm okay. Now, so I was doing 50 contacts a day. But what do you notice down here? And in fact, this line is drawn pretty poorly. This line really probably ought to be right there. Not there. Okay. What do you notice about how much money you make in that contacts phase? Because this blue line represents your money.
Starts to go up.
Yeah, you're starting to make some money.
It's ramping up.
But what I found is if all that happens is you get focused on the number of contacts you're making per day, that's going to be the top of the amount of you'll make some money. I don't want to take away from that. You'll make some money. But that's not where the big money is made. So how do we do that then? Well, so here's what happens. So let me go back to my story. I'm in this training with this guy. I'm frustrated because I'm not making the type of income that I wanted to be making. And I bring that up to him, which by the way, the other sub lesson for what I'm telling you guys right now is I learned at this training that I went to where this guy taught me this. One of the things I learned is ask questions. If you're stuck, ask somebody, talk about it. Like, because in the training, I raised my hand and I said, I'm frustrated because, and I don't remember what we were even talking about in the training, but somewhere along the way, and it may have just been after a break, the guy would usually say, anybody have any questions, even if it's not related to what we're talking about. And I said, yeah, I'm frustrated because I was told make 50 contacts a day. I make 50 contacts every day. And I'm telling you guys, Shirley and I were very, I don't know what the word would be, but like, adamant. Yeah, adamant. We didn't miss. Like I did 50 because I was like, I needed to make money and I wanted to make the 100,000. So we were like, I did it. It wasn't like I did it some days and not other days kind of a thing. It was like I didn't go home until I did it. So I was frustrated and I told him, I'm frustrated. Well, then he drew this on the board and said, here's why. Here's your problem. And so this is the other thing that for what we're talking about today. So the number one thing is focus. Okay. So that's the first principle we're going to hit on here is here's what he said to me. Your focus right now when you're prospecting is on getting to 50 contacts. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is. And he said, we got to get rid of that. He said, so who cares how many contacts you make? And he said this, actually, this is actually the way he said it. What if I told you this is what he said to me. What if I told you you could do half as many contacts, so 25, but double your income? And at the time, now remember, it took between 4 and 5 hours every day to hit this 50 contacts. So like it took time to get there. So when he said, what if I told you you could do half the contacts and double your income? And I was like, sign me up. Like, I don't even care what it is. Tell me what to do. I will do it. And for you guys that were here on Monday, remember I told you, I've just always been the type of guy, like you tell me what to do and that it'll work and I'll trust you and go do it. So I said that to him, tell me what to do. And he said, okay. He drew this on the board and he said, you're stuck here. We got to get you out of this phase and into this phase. This phase is what we would call the appointments phase. Now, in the appointments phase, if this is, think of this blue line here. This blue line is the learning curve, but it's also the amount of money you're going to make in the business. That is the steepest part of the learning curve. So this section or this phase is the steepest part of the learning curve, but it's also where you're going to make the most amount of money. And what he said to me is this: currently your focus is on making 50 contacts a day. He said, starting tomorrow, you're not going to focus on the number of contacts. Now, I always have to be clear on this to say, he didn't say don't keep track of your contacts. It's just not the focus. So still keep track of your contacts. You should still keep track of your contacts. So don't hear that, even though it's going to sound like I'm saying don't worry about them. But what he said is that's not your focus. Like, keep track so you know how many you did, but that's not your focus. Instead, starting tomorrow, what I want you to focus on is setting one new appointment. And then he defined that as somebody I've never met with before. So what he said is your job starting tomorrow is set one new appointment every single day that you work. And I said, okay, I could do that. And he said, okay, let me just make sure. What that means is tomorrow you won't go home until you set an appointment. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And he's like, let me just make sure you're going to go home tonight and you're going to tell your wife, I'm not coming home tomorrow if I don't set an appointment. Now, when he said that, I was like, oh, like I really have to set an appointment then. He said, yeah, like you can't go home. Now, let me come back to this for a minute. Remember, I was doing 50 contacts a day. Typically, after doing 50 a day or 250 a week is what I was doing, because I would do 5 days a week, I would do that. So I would do 250 contacts a week. At the end of those 250 contacts, it was not unusual for me to either have no appointments set or maybe one, if I was lucky and had a really good week, maybe two. So probably if I averaged them out, I was setting one appointment every 250 contacts. Now, so keep in mind, he just told me, who cares how many contacts it takes you? You're going to do it until you get an appointment. Well, my past history told me I'm going to have to do probably 250 to get one. So in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute. You are now telling me, and this is what I said to him. So I'm going to have to basically tomorrow do 250 contacts. And he said, no, you're not hearing what I said. What if, because remember what he told me is, what if you could prospect half as much, but double your income? And I was like, yeah, sign me up. And he said, okay, you got to just trust me that if you'll change your focus from being on number of contacts to a number of appointments. So one new appointment every day. He said, you'll prospect half as much and you'll double your income. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And he said, okay, go home tonight, tell your wife, I am not coming home tomorrow until I set an appointment. So I went home, walk in the door. My wife says, how was the training you went to? I said, it was really good. And she said, well, what'd you learn? And I said, what I learned is I'm not coming home tomorrow until I set an appointment. And she was like, okay, but we have going on at night and you have to be there. So like, you better get your appointment. I said, I know, I will. Now, let me ask you, if that was you, if I had you commit to that you would not go home tomorrow until you set an appointment, what time would you start work tomorrow?
8:30.
8:30, okay. Early, yeah. So here's what happened with me, is I was starting, remember I told you, I would usually get to the office 9:15, Shirley and I would go in a room and we would role play. Well now, and Shirley didn't go to this training, by the way. I went to it, she didn't go. So the next morning I'm like, I got to get to the office early. So I was at the office by 7:30. I showed up at the office at 7:30. Now, at the time, and we'll talk more about this probably Tuesday, but at the time, I was calling for sale by owners and expireds in the afternoon. So remember, I was told you from like 10 until, or excuse me, from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until I'd got 25 contacts. A lot of what I was calling then was for sale by owners and expireds. Well, now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I got to get my contacts in, or excuse me, I got to set my appointment, not get my contacts. I've got to set an appointment and I can't go home till I do. Well, the earliest you can legally call is 8 o'clock for telemarketing. That's the law. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be to the office by 7:30. I can stop, which back then you didn't have Red X that you could sign up for to get for sale by owners. The way we found for sale by owners was we stopped at like 7-Eleven and grabbed a newspaper, and then you opened it up and would go through and circle all the ones that were for sale by owner. So I did that on the way to the office. So I walk in the office at 7:30. I'm holding my newspaper. I get all the for sale by owners identified. I go to the computer. I print off all the expireds from the night before, look up the phone numbers. At 8 o'clock, I'm ready to start calling. So I jump on the phone and I start calling at 8 o'clock. Calling. Okay, I get through all of those. Once I've gotten through all those and I don't have an appointment, the next place I went to, bless you, is I went to my leads. Now, so just to kind of tie some of this together, remember part of your job is lead follow-up, and I said agents are typically not very good at it. If you want to become really good at lead follow-up, all you got to do is make a commitment. I won't go home until I set an appointment. And I promise you, you will call your leads, because those are typically going to be your best avenue. Like you already know those people have expressed an interest. So I immediately get on the phone and I start calling my lead follow-up, and I start calling. Well, I come across one that I say, hey, when can we get together? And they set up an appointment with me. And I'm like, yes, got my appointment. Now, the other thing that this guy had told me in the training was, remember, you can't go home until you set an appointment. Well, the other side of it was, as soon as you set your appointment, get whatever you have to done at the office and go home. Like, so if you get it early, do whatever work you need to do, but then just go home. And I was like, okay. So I get all of that done. Shirley shows up at 9:15 and says, let's go role play. I walk in with her to role play. We get done with role play and she says, all right, I'll meet you out at the car. And I go, yeah, I'm not going door knocking today. And she says, Shirley was a great accountability partner, because she was like, oh, yes, you are. And I was like, no, I went to this training yesterday. And one of the things the guy had me commit to is if I set an appointment, I had to prospect until I set an appointment. Once I set the appointment, then I had to go home, and I've already set an appointment. I called through my leads, set an appointment. So I got a few things to do here at the office, but then I'm going home. And Shirley says, that's a mistake. Don't do it. You should come and go. And I said, it's just for a week, Shirley, because I left that part out. So the training that I did with this guy was a Monday, Tuesday. Then we took a break from the training, and then the next week was Wednesday, Thursday. So like at the end of Tuesday, he gave us some assignments that we had to go do for a week, then come back and report on them on Wednesday. So my commitment to doing this was just for 1 week. I only had to commit to do it for a week. which is why I agreed to. So I told Shirley, it's only for a week, so you don't have to worry. It's just give me 1 week. And she's like, yeah, but it's setting you a week behind. Like, she was a great accountability partner. And I just said, I know, but it's part of the training. So just, I'm sorry, pretend I'm on vacation for a week, whatever. So, so I got my appointment. I got all my stuff done. It's noon and I go walking in the door and my wife says, what are you doing? And I said, I've set my appointment. And she's like, yeah, I'm not sure this is, now I've got my wife going, I don't think this is going to work, because she knew it usually was taking me till 5 or 6 at night to get my appointment before I would come home. And here I am now showing up at noon. And she's like, yeah, I'm not sure this is a good idea. And I said, it's just for a week. Let's see what happens. So I go out, mow the lawn, whatever. Okay. The next day, show up at 7:30. I'm going through all the same kind of a thing. I start calling through leads. I set an appointment pretty quickly. And so part of what I want you guys to see and understand from it is I ended up setting an appointment every single day within 2 hours. So remember, he said to me, if you will focus on setting appointments, not on contacts, it'll totally change everything. So I did. I changed my focus from on making 50 contacts to I will do it until I set an appointment. So every single day that week, I set an appointment in about 2 hours worth of prospecting. So all of a sudden now keep in mind, before that, I was doing 250 contacts and maybe setting 1 appointment. And now it's a week later, I've set 5 appointments, prospecting half as much. And I'm like, I love this. This was so good. Now, why? Besides just my focus though, what changed?
Your approach.
Okay, good. That's exactly right. Say more about it. What do you mean?
So it's
Which, sorry, for you guys on Zoom, Allie, since I can see you, did you hear what he said? Okay, she heard you.
So like with your approach, maybe if you were trying to hit 50 contacts at first, that means that you're not really, you're not trying your hardest to make it count. I lost the word, but you're not all good, for example.
Yeah.
I lost the word, but
No, you're right on.
yeah, you're just trying to hit the 50 mark and boom,
Yep.
you're finished for the day,
Yep. Yep.
But once you were trying to set your new appointment, that's when they start counting, that's when you
Yes.
start maybe working harder.
Good. Yeah, so let me show you. I'll show you what it looked like. When I was having to get 50 contacts a day, what I did is I would get a stack of 25 business cards because I was going to go door knocking and I wanted to hand out those 25. Actually, I always had 26, and I don't know why. I wasn't obviously smart enough to realize that if I took 25 cards and I gave out 25, that's how many contacts I made. Or if I had 5, I'd only, but instead I would take 26 and I would do a tick mark on the back every time I talked to somebody. Anyway, but this is what it looked like. So I'd come and I'd knock on your door, and this is what I would say. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed your neighbor's home over on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, listed for $499,900. And I'm just wondering who you know that would want to move into the area.
Nobody.
Okay. Well, have you thought about selling your house at all?
No, sorry.
Okay. Well, do you know anybody thinking about buying or selling?
No, but I could reach out to you.
Okay. Yeah. Here's my card. Just, yeah, if you hear anybody, let me know. Okay. And then I go 1. Knock, knock. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. And we just listed your neighbor's home over on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, listed for $499,900. Who do you know that wants to move into the area?
No one.
Okay, well, have you thought about selling your house?
No,
No? Okay, well, do you know anybody?
I don't.
Okay, well, here's my card.
Oh, thank you.
Now keep in mind, my objective is the faster I get to 50, then what?
You're done.
I'm done. So for me, it was like, the less I talk to you, the better. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's kind of what it was, because I'm trying to get to 50, which is probably why I didn't get very many appointments. So now let's go to what you're saying, where my approach changed. Now, what happens if I knock on Urbano's door and I set an appointment? I don't even have to go to Aubrey's door. So I'm done. So now watch what happens. Instead, this is what happens. So now don't roll over and give me an appointment. But if you feel like it's worth giving an appointment to me, then give an appointment to me. Okay. But don't be easy, but also don't be a jerk and slam the door. Okay. All right. So knock knock.
Yes, hello.
Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed your neighbor's home over on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage listed for $499,900. And I was just wondering who you know that would want to move into the area.
Yes, actually, I had this conversation with, with my family, so I think we are actually.
No, you're making it too easy.
Sorry.
Don't be that easy.
Okay. No, actually, no, we haven't thought about that at all. We don't know anyone.
You don't,
here.
okay, you don't know anybody. Okay,
No.
what about you? Have you thought about selling your home at all?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No, I'm really comfortable where I am right now.
You're comfortable. Okay, well, that's great. And so how long have you lived here?
I lived here for 3 years.
For 3 years,
Yeah.
really? Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. Good for you. Where'd you move from?
Thank you. From Ogden.
From Ogden down to
Yeah,
here.
uh-huh.
Serious, so what brought you here?
Just, I have more family here and more work opportunities here, so I wasn't enjoying it in Ogden as much.
Gotcha, just more, yeah, just a little bit better scenario
Mhm.
situation. for
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Down here. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's awesome. Well, let me ask you this, if you ever were to move, where would you go next?
I think somewhere around, Daybreak, Cameron, Riverton.
Okay,
around
so
that area over there.
Daybreak, Harriman, Riverton, somewhere in that area. Okay,
Yeah.
so when do you think that would be?
Oh, I don't know, I have no clue.
You haven't really thought about it too much. So, okay, so it's kind of something that's there, but like not really
Yeah,
in the near future.
no,
Okay, well, let me ask you this. How are you using real estate to plan for your financial?
I haven't. really-
Oh, really?
No.
You haven't considered that one? Okay, well, would that be something you'd be interested in zoning investment properties, having some money that just comes in every month? Sometimes people refer to it as mailbox money, you just go to the mailbox and there's money there. But that-
Actually, yeah, that catches my attention, actually.
That does?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
So, you know what we ought to do is just sit down and spend a little bit of time. I'll walk you through the process of what it would take to do that and see if it's something that works for you. So what would be better for you, afternoon or an evening?
Afternoon, please, that'd be way better.
Okay, so would 3 o'clock tomorrow?
No, probably in a couple of days, actually.
Okay, so on Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
Okay, 3 o'clock on Saturday.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool. Now, so notice I just got an appointment. So what changed? What changed in that scenario?
Quality conversations instead of quantity.
That's right. Yeah, notice the difference is what happens is when my focus is on, I gotta set an appointment, I'm actually going to do things different. My approach changes. Instead of being like, okay, because for me, I always identified a contact. If I knocked on your door and I said, my name is Russ with Century 21, and we just listed a house, and you said, I'm not interested. I was like, one, like, I didn't care because I'm like, there's one. I only got to get to 50. Versus if my focus is on, I got to set an appointment. Well, now I'm going to spend a little more, because here's the thing, if I can spend time talking to you and create a scenario, and I'm going to teach you guys how to do this in a second, and get the appointment here, well, I don't even have to go to talk to anybody else now. Now, one of the other pieces that I left off here as part of this set appointments is the better you get at this, at setting appointments, the other thing that I've learned over time on this is sometimes early on when you're first learning this process that I'm talking about, you'll end up setting appointments with people that you shouldn't set an appointment with just to get an appointment so you can go home. But when for me, when I realized that, hey, it's not about setting an appointment just to set an appointment, it's about finding somebody that I can do a transaction with, that I can really help. And because here's what happened, just so let me finish the rest of the story on this and then we'll come back to how do we do it. After the week was up, I told you guys I had set 5 new appointments. I went back to the training that next day and we started the training with the guy going, all right, let's talk about, you committed to making 5 appointments. Did you do it? And I said, yeah. And he said, what happened? And I reported back, I got an appointment, this, went through all of this stuff on my appointments. And he said, so what do you think? And I said, I can see where if I keep doing this, I will set a ton more appointments. At that point, I was like, I don't know about making doubling my income. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but I could see where I will prospect less to get appointments. And he said, if you'll keep doing it, you'll double your income or more than double. And here's what happened. The next year, after doing just this, setting 1 new appointment, I went from basically $35,000 a year to more than doubled. Like I was almost to the 100. I didn't quite hit the 100. But then the next year, I kept doing just this and I doubled my income again. And then the next year, I didn't quite double it, but I still increased a lot. By doing just, well, probably let me say it this way. I got to where I was doing over 50 transactions by doing just this. Just set one new appointment. Okay, so now, so how do we do that? How do we get the appointments? That's the next piece of this. So that's going to be number 2 that we're going to talk about. So when you're prospecting, I'm going to give you 3 more things. So this 4 total, but focus is the first one. You're prospecting. So because remember, I started this whole thing today telling you your job really is these 2 things. Like most of your time spent doing real estate is doing these 2 things. The majority of your time for now. Once you get past here, then, which by the way, just so that you know, this last phase is what we call the transactions phase. This phase, if you want to get to where you're making $500,000 or more a year, this phase, you have to keep 1 new appointment every day. So, and the reason I tell you that is on this, make sure you hear. Some of you didn't hear what I said when I said set 1 new appointment. You heard it as I have to get an appointment that I'm going to go on. I didn't say that. I said you're going to have to set 1 new appointment. I said nothing about attending any of these. Does that make sense? And the reason I'm saying that is because I already know, and I want you to know, remember my job, I told you guys, my job is enable you to, I didn't tell you guys this. My job is to enable you to know. And the way I do that is through that mantra that I said, which is power comes out of telling the truth. I believe power comes out of telling the truth. And when I say that, by the way, power comes out of telling the truth does not mean the words you say. It's what you tell yourself. When I say power comes out of telling the truth, it's do you tell yourself the truth? I mean, it is the words you say, but it's more so of do you tell yourself the truth? Well, why I bring that up is early on what I found with me. And this is why I would say the reason I didn't just automatically go from where I was to immediately flying up there in terms of transactions is because I was cheating on some of these appointments. And what I mean by that was, here's what I found. If you call up a for sale by owner and you were to just say to them, hi, my name's Russ, I'm with Century 21, and I work with buyers in the area. And I would like to come out and take a look at your house so that I know what it's like and be familiar with it. So that if I have a buyer that's interested, would that be okay? Most of them will say yes. And then I would go, yes, I got an appointment. And I learned pretty quickly that unless the person really thought I was coming to talk to them about potentially listing their home, I didn't count. Like it became an easy way out for me. If it got too close to noon and I didn't have an appointment, I would call it for sale by owner. Hey, I work with buyers in the area. Can I come out and take a look at your house? Yes. Okay. Got my appointment. And then I'd go home and then one day I hit me like power comes out of telling the truth. Are you really setting an appointment when that happens? And I was like, no, then don't count it anymore. And from then on, I didn't count it anymore. And so then it forced me to do even a little more. Okay. All right. Now, so number 2, the second thing on this in terms of your prospecting. And in fact, actually, let me even explain one other piece here real quick. We're going to, on Tuesday, we're going to get into the specifics of like how do I approach and work in expired? How do I do it with the for sale by owner? How do I do door knock? Like all that stuff we're going to talk about on Tuesday. But today, what we're going to talk about is the skills you've got to use, because it does not matter whether you're doing it for sale by owner, an expired listing, an internet lead, anything, doesn't matter. This process is the same. Like, I don't care what avenue of prospecting you're wanting to do. You got to first have a focus on setting an appointment. Then the second thing that you have to do is you have to connect. You have to create a connection or connect with the people that you're talking with. Okay. So how do you do that? How do you connect with them? Well, let's talk about that. So the way that you're going to create a connection is, so, and let me say it this way to you. This is from Tony Robbins. Everybody know who Tony Robbins is? Okay. So Tony Robbins says, people like people who are like them or who they want to be. So the way you create a connection with people is people like people who are like them or who they want to be. So if you stop and think about the people that you have a connection with or that you connect with, it is because they're either like you or they're like who you want to be. So if we want to connect with people, we got to either be like them or who they want to be. Okay. Now, so how do we do it? The first thing that we're going to do is we have to ask a question. Okay. First thing we got to do is ask a question. So when I knocked on Urbano's door, I said, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed a home over on Birch and Pine, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, $499,900. And I was just wondering who you know that wants to move into the area. There's my question. Who do you know that wants to move into the area? And you said?
Nobody.
Nobody. Okay. Now, the next piece of this in creating a connection with people is you have to then repeat back what they said. Now, this part comes from Chris Voss. Does anybody know who Chris Voss is? Yeah, I'm like, you do know who he is?
Yeah.
I'm impressed. You know?
He's a negotiator.
Yeah, good. Did you tell him?
Don't remember.
I was just wondering because you looked at Wrigley's, you said.
Yeah.
So he wrote a book that's called Never Split the Difference. If you have never read that book, I would recommend you read it. But one of the things he calls it mirroring in his book, you got to mirror them. But so you could say it repeat, or I'll put /mirror. Okay. And on that, what you want to do is repeat back to them the last 3 to 5 words that they said, or summarize the concept of what they said. So now let me show you what I mean. So I knocked on the door, knock, knock. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We listed a home, blah, 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 blah. Who do you know that wants to move into the area?
Nobody.
Nobody.
No.
So notice, I just repeat right back, nobody. And here's the other thing that I've learned. And this was reinforced to me recently. You want to use the same words that they used, or at least the same concept. Now, here's why. One of the things that if you will implement this stuff into what you're doing, if you'll implement this into just your data, in fact, let me rephrase that. You need to implement this into your just everyday life. Get it to, don't just have this be, I do it during real estate, have it be something you do consistently. Now, part of that though is when you repeat back to them, you want to use basically the same words or something close to what they have used, because that's how they relate to it. Remember, people like people who are like them or who they want to be. Well, this got reinforced to me recently. And it was a scenario of like, I wasn't doing it the right way. And then it hit me what the problem was. Now, so my wife and I were out on a walk and we were talking and she was telling me some of her frustrations. And every time she was doing it, I was like repeating it. And then actually the other part of that is affirming. So we want to repeat and mirror back, and then we want to affirm what they're saying. Okay. So I was doing that with my wife. But I was not using the same word that she uses. And what I mean by that is she was talking about something and how annoying it was. And I was saying, oh, that's frustrating. And she was talking and I kept saying, oh, that's frustrating. And then finally she stopped and she goes, you say that a lot. And I said, I say what a lot? Frustrating. And I was like, well, I think it would be frustrating if that happened. And she's like, yeah, but it just doesn't feel real when you're saying it, but I don't think you mean it. And I'm like, okay. Well, what I then did though, is I started to pay attention, and what she was saying was annoying. And then I was saying, yeah, that's frustrating. So in her mind, it's like, no. So here's the funny thing. So don't anybody tell her that I did this. Like I said, right? Now, when she tells me something, I go, oh, that's annoying. And since I've done that, like I haven't changed the number of times that I'm repeating back. I just changed to saying the word she uses, which is annoying, versus for me, even last night, actually, she said something to me, and right afterwards, I was like, oh, that's frustrating. And I was like, crap, I said the wrong word. But she's fine with it if it's occasionally, but like that particular today, I was like, oh, that's frustrating. That's frustrating. She's like, you keep saying that's frustrating, and like, I don't think you really understand or whatever. So you got to use the same words basically that they use. So if they say, nope, I'm going to say, oh, nope. Like use back to them, people who are like them. Okay. So repeat the first. So who do you know that wants to move into the area? If he says, geesh, I can't think of anybody. Oh, you can't think of anybody? See, I'm not gonna, oh, you don't know anybody? If he says, I can't think of anybody, and I say, you don't know anybody, I'm not using the same words. So use the same words or combination of, or whatever, you know. I don't know anybody. Oh, you don't know anybody? Well, I appreciate you thinking about it. That's the affirm. Okay. Well, I appreciate you thinking about it. Or you got to say, that's great. Good for you. Awesome. Wow, that's exciting. Or if they say something that's not exciting, you want to be like, oh, I'm sorry, or that's frustrating. Maybe don't say whatever it is. But the way we're going to connect is I'm going to say, who do you know that wants to move into the area? Urbano says,
Nobody.
nobody.
I don't know anyone.
Now, if you really want to even take it to the next level, you can repeat it back the same way they did. So who do you know that wants to move into the area?
Nobody.
Nobody. See, I just say it back, nobody, and do even the same type of body language too, okay? But I'm just gonna, oh, nobody, really? Okay, well, hey, I appreciate you thinking about it. Well, let me ask you, when do you plan on moving?
Not anytime soon.
No time soon.
No.
Okay, really? So how long have you lived here?
For 3 years now.
Oh, 3 years.
Yeah.
Really? Wow, that's great. Now, I just made him laugh and smile. Now I'm going to show you how I did that. I didn't do it the very first time I took him through asking that, and I didn't do it intentionally because I wanted to see what I have found is if you'll respond to them that way, they'll almost always smile. Like, I don't care what he says. Give me a different answer. So how long have you lived here?
For 3 years.
3? No, you 3 years ago, you already said. You got to give me a different answer.
All right.
You're not very good at following my rules. All right. So how long have you lived here?
For 7 months now.
7 months.
Yeah.
Okay, now do a really long one. How long have you lived here?
15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
15
great.
years.
Like, what, but for you, when I do that, what does it feel like to you? Like, what is it, the feeling?
That you're engaged with me. You know?
Yeah. See, watch what happens. This is what most agents do. When I get with agents and listen to them make phone calls, this is what they do. So watch. Now, tell me how this feels. So ring, ring. Well, we'll do it like we're on the phone.
Okay.
Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, this is Russ. I'm with Century 21, and we just listed your neighbor's home over on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, blah, 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 blah. I was wondering who you know that wants to move into the area.
That sounds like an amazing property, but you know, right now I don't know anyone. Sorry.
Well, when do you plan on moving?
I actually don't plan on moving. We haven't talked about that
How long have you lived at this address?
for 12 years.
Where'd you move from?
From Ogden.
How did you pick this area?
Oh, it was a realtor that helped us out.
What were
12
you
years.
doing on Friday night at 7:30 p.m.? Like, doesn't it feel like an interrogation
Yeah.
when you're doing that? Notice that though, but most agents don't repeat and affirm. And I'm telling you, if you want to get people to engage with you, it's through repeating and affirming, and you got to do it. Now, so let me share this with you. UCLA did a study on communication, and here's what they found. 7% of communication is the words that we use. So 7% of our communication is the words that we use. 38% of communication is the tone or the inflection. 55% of communication is body language. 55% of communication is body language. So part of what happened there when I got him to feel very engaged is because, and you can't do this, well, you can do it over the phone, but they can't see your body language over the phone, which that's why when Rick has you guys role play, he typically says, don't look, and why you noticed me turn this way, because in a role play over the phone, you can't see their body language. And just FYI, over the phone, the phone tends to diminish even the tone a little bit. So you got to actually, if you're on the phone with somebody, you kind of have to overdo it. And I would say on the phone, get your body language involved and be very expressive with what you're doing over the phone in terms of the body language. Now, so let's run through this. Let me show you what I mean. The words that we use are so crucial. Meaning, like you look at this and it looks like, well, the words don't really matter. And to some extent that is true. But they do matter a little bit. Meaning, if I went home tonight and I told my wife, hey, honey, I hate you. Like the words matter, right? Like if I can't do that. But to show you what I mean by that, so even if I use the right words, but I don't use the right tone, watch what happens. I get home tonight, I walk in and I say, hey, honey, I love you. Like, what's she going to hear?
Awkward question mark.
Yeah, it was like I was questioning if I love her, right? So the tone, so the words matter, but the tone, how we say them makes even more difference. So let me show you, give you one more example of that. So I am going to say a sentence and you guys tell me what's the message I'm conveying, okay? And I'm going to say the same sentence multiple times, but it's going to change the meaning for you every time, okay? Ready? I didn't say he stole the money. So what's the message you just got?
Kind of, I'm being accused of something.
Okay, good. Yeah, it wasn't me. Okay, how about this? I didn't say he stole the money. Okay. I didn't say he stole the money.
Someone else, or
That's right. I didn't say he stole the money.
It's stole.
Yeah, he might have borrowed it, right? I didn't say he stole the money.
It's all of it.
Yeah, he might have stole something, but it was no. So notice, just by the way that I say the word, this is what UCLA found is just the words by themselves are 7%, which they still are an important 7%. But how I say the words makes even more of an impact on it, what it's doing. Now, how about this? So speaking of Tony Robbins, have any of you ever been to any of his events? Oh,
Yeah.
what did you go to?
Unleashed Power Within
Okay.
virtual.
Awesome. Oh, you did the virtual one?
Yeah.
I don't know if that, I don't know. Haven't done a virtual, so I don't know if it was as good, but when I went, so he has on the second day, he didn't do the second day, right? Was
no.
probably Joseph
Yeah,
McClendon.
Joseph.
Yep. Okay, so on day 2 here, when I learned how crucial this body language was at this training, and it wasn't they were training on it, but at the start of the second day, so Tony Robbins' voice can't hold up for 4 days, even though you go to a 4-day seminar, he only does 2 out of the 4 days. But on day 2, Joseph comes out on the stage. And they announce him, and here's Joseph and McClendon or something like that, right? Yeah. And he comes out on the stage and everybody's clapping. And he comes out on the stage and he goes like this. And what does everybody do when he does this?
I don't know.
They clap more. And then he goes, all right, guys, have a seat. No, stop. Did he still do this too?
I don't remember
Oh,
that.
that's why I'm wondering if virtually if he would have.
ago.
Yeah, but so he's going like this and he's going, stop. But what did we do when he's doing this?
Keep going.
Yeah, everybody cheered louder. He's like, no, stop, guys, stop, have a seat. No, stop. No, stop. And the whole time everybody's like, getting louder and louder. See, that's the proof of, didn't matter what he said, his body language was like, keep coming, keep giving it to. See, that's what happens with our body language. Another book, you'll notice I didn't say a good book, another book to read. It probably is a good book. I just didn't enjoy it. But the name of the book, this was written by another interrogator, kind of negotiator like what Chris Voss is. But this one is called What Everybody Is Saying. So it's like what everybody is saying, but it's what everybody, because it's all about body language. And so, for example, pay attention to people's feet will tell you more than anything if they're engaged in your conversation. Like if you're at a party and, or some type of a get together, and you're talking to somebody, pay attention to their feet. If you notice their feet either turning or turned sideways from you, they're trying to, their body language is telling you, I'm done with this conversation. So there was one day that actually, I wish Rick was still in here, but there was one day down in Rick's office, one of the top agents that runs one of the top teams here came to talk to him. And I'm trying to figure out how to do this so that Zoom can see me. Like usually I go over to the door.
They can
but-
see you like. You're-
Well, I know, but if I go over here to the door, they can't see me.
Oh,
So,
okay.
But so picture, we'll do it this way. Picture this is like the doorway's right here. So this is like the wall. So the doorway's right here. So the agent came and he like put his head, like his head was around the door, but his whole body wasn't in the door. Just kind of his head was around the door like this. And I can't remember what he said, but he said something to Rick. And then Rick started talking and talking and talking, and the guy was like this. And then along the way, Rick goes, yeah, I might know of a property that you might be interested in. And he goes, oh, came into his office and Rick was telling him about the property. And then as soon as he was done telling him, Rick was still talking and the guy went right back out. Like, and after he walked away, I said, Rick, I don't know if you caught that, but his body language was trying to tell you, I don't want a long conversation right now. So that's why he was sticking just his head in the door. But the moment Rick said, oh, I might know a property that you could buy to fix up and sell, whoop, his whole body came in. He was totally engaged. As soon as they were done talking about it, he went right back to like, so pay attention to people's body language, because the body language gives away more of what they're really thinking. So one of the things from that I just remember, and if you pay attention to yourself too, like the next time you're talking to somebody and you're really not wanting to, you'll notice all of a sudden your feet were pointed the other direction, or you're only partially into the doorway, or like you're not getting your body fully engaged. Okay. All right. So that's on the connect piece. And with the body language. So now let me come back to this. And so hopefully, I don't know how well you guys on Zoom can see. This is why, if you can be here, be in person on Tuesday. Then I look over. She gave me a thumbs up. Okay. So, but pay attention. I'll try to, I don't know how well you can see me, Ali, but we'll try it. So watch what my body language, pay attention to my body language when I'm doing this with Urban. Okay. So knock, knock.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed your neighbor's home, blah, 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 all that stuff. Who do you know that wants to move into the area?
I actually don't know anyone right now.
You don't know anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So now even notice right there, he went, and I kind of did it. You don't know anyone? Like I'm really trying to mirror back kind of what he did. Okay. So don't know anyone? Well, hey, I appreciate you thinking about it. How about you? Have you thought about selling your home at all?
No, that hasn't been, of our interest lately.
Haven't had interest in that?
No,
Okay. Well, I appreciate you thinking about it. So how long have you lived here?
12 years.
12 years. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, notice what I did with that. Like if I just went, oh, 12 years, that's great. Like it doesn't come across the same as 12 years. You're kidding. That's awesome. Like, what's the difference of how that feels of, oh, 12 years, that's great.
More like monotone, more
Versus
dry.
12 years? Really? And I don't care what they say. That's how I respond. If they said 2 days, you've been here 2 days? Are you kidding me? Where'd you move from? If we lived here for 50 years, you have lived here for 50 years. That's amazing. Like no matter what they say, I act like it's the coolest thing I've ever heard. Okay. And part of that is that's going to create this connection. People want to be noticed, recognized, like by you making them feel like they're important. If you make them feel important, they're going to want to talk to you. Okay. So that's why I do that. That's why I go, you're kidding. You've been here for 50 years. That's amazing. Where'd you move from?
From Ogden.
And then all from Ogden to here. Oh, you're kidding. So what brought you here? See, here's the thing. I'm using a script, by the way. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm saying the same thing every single time. But what I'm adding to it, does it feel like I'm doing a script when I do it that way?
No, it doesn't.
Because I'm like, you're kidding. So where did you move from? Ogden. Oh, Ogden to here. So what brought you here?
friends and family. that-
And then no matter what they say on that, I go, oh, like, oh yeah, of course. Like I act like, of course, that's why you came here. So friends and family, makes sense. Well, hey, well, if you ever were to move, where would you go next?
Daybreak area.
Oh, out to Daybreak.
Mhm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So when do you think that would be?
You know, no, we're not anytime soon, actually.
No time soon.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, now, so can you see though, any questions on this as far as to ask questions, repeat and affirm? Okay, next piece of this. That's still part of this connect is gonna be what is empathy. Okay, is empathy. You gotta empathize with people, specifically if they're frustrated. So if you're gonna work for sale by owners or expired, so remember I told you these skills, this concept, no matter what prospecting you're gonna do, you're gonna incorporate this into it. That's why I will start with this today. Then on Tuesday, we'll get into more of the, how do I do it if I'm calling this or that. So empathy, if you're calling for sale by owners and expireds and they're like, you know what, you're the 30th agent to call me today. You gotta then kick into empathy. And again, with this, practice these skills in every single part of your life, not just real estate. Like if you want to have a better connection with people, empathize with them. So empathy is this. If I were you, I would feel the same way or I would do the same thing. So if I were you, I would feel that too. If I were you, I would do that same thing. Okay, that's what empathy is. You're always going to start it with, if I were you, I would do that same thing. So let's say I ask you for sale by owner. So why did you decide to sell your home on your own? And they're going to say what? Typically, why do they decide to sell it for sale by owner?
Because
Save the commission. Yep. So what I'm going to say is, hey, so they're going to say, if I asked them for sale by owner, so did you decide to sell it yourself rather than list with an agent? Well, I want to save the commission. Oh, you want to save the commission? If I were you, I would want to do that too. I would want to save the commission too. So that's empathy. If I were you, I would want to do that too. Now, sometimes people feel like, yeah, but I don't agree they should do that. But if I said, if I were you, I would feel the same way too. Am I lying to them? If you were them, would you feel the same way? Yeah. So just recognize hey, if I were you, I would be frustrated too. If I were you, I'd want to save the commission too. If you're calling it expired and you call up and say, hi, my name is Russ, I'm with Century 21, they're going to be like, yeah, you're the 50th agent to call me today. I'm going to go, oh, if I were you, I would be frustrated or annoyed or whatever. That's got to be frustrating to get that many calls from 58, like for real, 50 is probably what I would say to them. I'd be like, you really got 50? Yeah, it's annoying. Then I go, yeah, it is annoying. See, that's empathy. If I were you, I would be frustrated too. I would be annoyed. I would want to save the commission, whatever it is. If I were you, I would feel that way too. Okay. All right. We good on this? Any other questions? Next thing is number 3 is create value. So the next thing you've got to do is to create value. Okay. So if I'm going to set an appointment with people, first thing I got to do is have the focus on setting the appointment. The second thing is I got to get a connection with them. And I'm going to do that through asking some questions, repeating and affirming, empathizing with them, all of those things. Okay. Once I have done that, then the next step is I need to create value. And the way that I'm going to create value for people is through typically asking some type of a question or making some type of a statement, maybe even a sound bite, something like that, which we'll get more into later. But what I did to create the value before, so when you finally agreed to setting an appointment with me, why did you do it? What did I say that had you want to meet with me?
Basically repeating what I was saying.
Okay.
Made me feel more engaged, like I said, in the conversation, maybe.
Okay.
And just,
Do you remember where you saw value though?
the investing.
That's right.
Yeah.
So here's what typically I'm going to do to try to create value with people is you've got to figure out something that the other way you can think of this is I will typically say create value. Sometimes I'll even say you got to make them curious would be the other way. In order for you to set an appointment with people, and if stop and think about it for yourself, whenever if somebody's called you or came and knock on your door and you ended up buying from them, if you stop and analyze it, you will realize that you did it because you either saw the value or you were curious. Like that's, you will set an appointment with somebody. People will set appointments with you if you create value or you make them curious. If you can make them curious, they'll set an appointment with you as well. So let me give you an example of this. So in fact, actually, let me give you another book that if you want to read a book that is about this.
Another book or a good book?
This was a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's a thicker book, but it's good. Maybe not as enjoyable to read, but good information, very good. Is The Secrets of Question-Based Selling is the name of the book. The Secrets of Question-Based Selling. Secrets of Question-Based Selling. The author is Thomas Friese, and it's F-R-E-S-E. I think that's right. I know it's with an S, not a Z, but Friese with an F, and I think it's just one S. Could be two, but anyway, Thomas Friese. Secrets of Question-Based Selling. In his book, the example of this he uses is he talks about, and that book is just a sales book. It's not specific to real estate, even though the experience I'm going to share with you from the book is related to real estate. But he's talking about this particular piece, creating value or making people curious. And what he says is he was with a real estate agent that was calling farmers, trying to get them to sell their land so that a builder could then develop and build houses. And the guy would call up and he would get a voicemail and he would leave a voicemail that sounded like this, which is what most agents sound like. Hi, this is Russ with Century 21. Was calling to see if you were interested in selling your land. Please give me a call back. I've got tons of people that would be interested in buying. My phone number, 801-556-4441. Thanks, bye. Now, Thomas Friese, the author of this book, says to the agent, how many people call you back? And you guys tell me, if you leave that type of message, or you get that type of a message from somebody, how likely are you to call them back?
Think of before I even finish the message.
Thank you. Yeah, typically, hi, this is Russ with Century 21. Delete. Like, okay, I don't need that. You got to make them curious. So what he said is, let me leave the next one. So they're calling. They get another voicemail. This Thomas gets on there and says, hey, my name is Thomas, and I was calling about your, oh, sorry, I screwed up already. That's not what he said. Here's what he said. He calls and says, hi, this is Thomas. I'm holding a copy of your tax records in my hand, and I have some questions for you. Please give me a call back. Now, what do you think the likelihood somebody's going to call back for that message?
Next 5 minutes. So.
Yeah, you're kind of like, why do you have my tax records in your hand? Is what they're thinking, right? That's where he said, you got to make them curious. So the same thing within your prospecting, you have got to figure out a way to either make people curious or create values to where they want to talk to you, meet with you. Question or no? You look like you had a question.
No.
Okay. All right. So I think what we'll do is, I think we're gonna probably, well, I'll give you number 4, but then I'm gonna give you more detail. We'll pick up on Tuesday right here. I'm gonna give more detail on this, and then I'll give way more on number 4 too. But I'm just gonna give it to you and we'll wrap up for today. And then, like I said, Tuesday, what we're going to do is, so we'll finish off all of this of how do we do this and how do I do the number 4, which number 4, by the way, is close. You have to close. And we'll go through and talk about that in greater detail Tuesday as well. But after we do that, then we'll go through, okay, what are the specific ways of prospecting? I've got a couple of other things I'm going to give you before we do that, but Tuesday we'll get into what are the ways to go through and apply this then in the different areas that you're going to prospect in. Does that make sense? So any questions? Were you online and then, okay, so I was like, I noticed somebody dropped off about the time you walked in.
I showed up, yeah.
So tell me your name.
Lauren.
Lauren, okay, cool. So did you put your name in the chat box? Okay, then I was going to say how you sign in here, but.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so any other questions? Okay, so Tuesday, 11 o'clock, we'll finish this off. I'm gonna get into more detail on this. And we'll get into a ton more detail on this. I've got a couple of other things we'll go through. And then we'll hit on, okay, so now how do we all apply all this stuff to make it work? Sound good? Okay, cool. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Ally. See ya. Thanks, Caitlin, and whoever just dropped off.